I mean, I think we're really benefiting from year two. You know, I firmly believe in that compound effect. You know, not only, everybody likes to talk about the players in year two, but I think there's a huge benefit. And we've been fortunate. We've had minimal attrition. We lost a couple of assistants. We lost a few second and third tier people throughout the building, but we have a really large group that we've been able to retain. So everything we're doing for the second time. And we've benefited from the Hebner Center. I think that's been impactful. So, yeah, just much more comfortable headed into year two. Very pleased with the players, and certainly we just get better at all parts of our process, you know, in the second year.
Any more clarity on the quarterback situation, and what are you looking for in fall camp in terms of that position? Yeah,
no, I've been very pleased with those guys this summer. You know, I think that the summer really presents opportunity for the quarterback. There's so much time, independent of the time they spend with our staff, and those guys have embraced that. You know, again, really pleased with what Graham brings to our team. You know, you think about over 2,000 snaps, 32 starts. He's caused others to respond. You know, Jack has responded, had a great offseason and a good summer. And then Max, really been pleased with the summer he's had. He's made an impression on the staff and our other players. So we'll know pretty quick. You know, I think at some point we want to start giving the majority of the reps to the first team guy. But we'll go in and we'll have competition. We'll see where that takes us.
What kind of separators are you looking for in that competition? What are you going to want to see from someone to grasp that?
Yeah, man, I think you got to keep it simple from a football standpoint, right? You want to execute the plan, move the team, score points, and then really quarterback's about so much more, right? Their ability to influence the team. There's a leadership component. There's a knowledge and communication component. And, you know, ultimately one of these guys is going to win over the staff and win over the team. So we're excited about that group.
Ideal timetable there?
Yeah, I think
couple weeks.
I think it'll happen relatively quick. But we're not going to make a decision until we're ready to do that.
Is it ideally like within, what, 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, we scrimmage, I think, 2 times in training camp.
Okay.
We'll get through that first scrimmage, we'll evaluate, go through that first set of installation, put the ball down and play in that first scrimmage. And then at that point, not only are we evaluating the quarterback, but we're evaluating the whole group, you know, each part of our team.
Billy, can you could give potentially on just some of the health situations of some of the key guys like Micah and Devin and Derek Wingo, guys like that?
Yeah, all have been through return to play protocol. You know, I think Micah is the one player who's yet to be completely cleared, but those other guys are participating. You know, they're completely cleared and been participating in OTAs.
How optimistic are you that Micah is going to be ready to go before the start of the season?
Yeah, we have. He's doing great. Yeah, he's on schedule. You know, and certainly he'll get reps. He'll have his opportunity to compete. And you know, I think before his injury, he showed that he's very capable. There'll be some things that come with missing time, but overall, he's on schedule to be ready to go.
How's Cam Waits doing in his recovery?
Yeah, Cam's doing really well. You know, we anticipate him being available at some point during the season.
Okay.
Right? So, really pleased with that, and I think he's ahead of schedule a little bit. So, that process has went really well. So, and again, that's a guy who we think has a bright future. You know, and you know, hopefully we get him in position where he can take some reps, you know, in the end of the year.
And is Jalen?
We have the 3 players available across the room.
Is Jalen
week to week in the SEC ruling? How do you feel about your depth going into year 2? Is it better than it was last season? Do you think you guys have done enough to be able to be healthy at the end of the season?
You know, I think that we're going to have young players that are going to have to play. You know, I do think we've got kind of an influx of talented young players. I feel really good about the portal work we did. You know, we added 10,000 snaps of experience, 123 starts, line of scrimmage players. You know, I do think there's a component to that. But overall, our depth will be developed throughout training camp. You know, 93% of our team was here in January, right? Very unique. We had 27 mid-years. So these are some of the things I'll talk about throughout the day, but I think that's really unique in that regard, right? We have, essentially, we've been coaching this team since January, right? So that's given us a little bit of an advantage in developing depth because they went through the off-season program, they went through spring ball, and then they even rebooted the computer, started the installation over in OTA. So I think some of these young players will be in a little bit better position to contribute.
Billy, do you think that Florida's flying in under the radar a little bit right now, coming off 2 6 and 7 seasons? You know, a lot of buzz in the league, obviously, with certain programs. And does that matter to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, what I think is that we're not going to let outside opinion or a created narrative define the reality for this 23 team. You know? So our players are going to decide that. So ultimately, this group has been working and is going to continue to work. Yeah, under the radar, sure, if that's what you want to call it. You know, we'll start playing the games here pretty soon.
It's one reason I asked about momentum to that point. Is that what it takes?
Yeah,
a win, you know, maybe someone didn't expect, or just some momentum?
You know, I think one of the things that we did was we went through an extensive evaluation of year one. Consistency's the key, right? Can we handle success? You know, we like to talk about handling failure, but you know, every time we got momentum last year, we fell flat on our face, right? So we essentially lose 5 one-score games. The margin of error in this league is really small. So I think we learned a lot from that, and I think we'll benefit from that this year.
I believe there's been a trend, I guess, in a lot of these interviews where coaches talk about giving up play calling. I'm just curious your thoughts about it as far as, you know, the bandwidth. Is it too much or not enough, or how do you view that compared to the rest of your job?
No, I think it's a relevant question. I do think it's part of the evaluation to some degree, but I feel confident in our process, right? We've done it before, and I do think some of the growing pains that come with year one, I went through some of those things much like some of our other staff and other players did, right? So I'm very hopeful we'll continue to improve, and I'll benefit from year two just as much as any player or any staff member.
What kind of growing pains did you go through?
You know, to be quite honest, I think the biggest adjustments were the recruiting calendar, the pace. Essentially, you're behind a class and a half when you sign up, unless you've been recruiting this pool of players. You know, we weren't fortunate. I wasn't fortunate enough to have been. I wasn't recruiting that pool of players. So that's number one. I think a heck of a year to get your first SEC job with the portal and with NIL. So, you know, I think we navigated that well. I feel good about how we've adjusted, you know, systematically. All the other parts of our process, I think, are sound and sustainable, repeatable. Those are the big adjustments for myself.
Billy, what's the challenge of getting young receivers ready to play and contribute?
You know, I think that just talking to some of our veteran players, I think receiver position, I think every rookie, until you felt that urgency, right, that game day urgency, until you've been there in the moment, in that competitive dynamic, until you've experienced that, I think that's where we're going to see the growth throughout the year, right? It's one thing for a coach to tell you that, for a veteran player to try to explain that to you. So I think we've got some talented young players, and there's no question we're going to need those guys to impact our team. But you know, as we go, I think they'll benefit from their experience, and there'll be some growth that'll happen throughout the season.
Where are you seeing the biggest year-over-year gains? You know, from this time last year to here.
I think it's just, you know, I'm about as OCD as they come, right? So I think each part of our calendar, each part of our off season, each phase, as we call each stage, we've have a year of experience, right? And we adjust, we adapt, we evolve, we make the necessary changes. And I think it's evident in recruiting right now that we've adjusted and we've adapted and evolved. And I think that those hopeful we'll see some of that in our football as well, right? So I think that the challenge in taking over a job in today's dynamic is you're trying to create trust in a small window of time, right? With NIL, which creates instability, uncertainty. There is a natural insecurity of a player. You didn't recruit me, you don't know me. Do you think I'm a good player? Do you have a plan for me? And I think with the portal and all the other variables, that creates a significant challenge. Not to mention just the basic things about, hey, we got a place that needs to be torn down and built back up again. So, ultimately that's what I would say.
Billy, how do you feel about the defensive side and just what Austin's brought in as a coordinator?
I've got confidence in what I see. I do. I think we've added some really good pieces. I think in the front seven in particular. Again, year two, all the assistant coaches on defense had never been in our way of doing things. Right? All of this was foreign to them. Patrick Toney was the only person. I think we had one analyst. Every other person on that side of the ball, all these systems and processes and how we do what we do was foreign to them. So I've seen Austin not only kind of get the cliff notes and hit the ground running, but also I think each person around him is improving. Right? They know what's next. They know how to use their time. Plus we know the players, right? We have established trust and respect. They understand expectations. And we're teaching this material for the second time. The teacher's teaching it for the second time, and the players learning it for the second time to some degree.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a lot of new players, but so we all understand the value of experience in this game, right? And I think to build a deep team as time goes, we need to retain staff, we need to retain players. So Austin's worked with me 2 different times before. He's been in this blueprint at Georgia for a year. So there, he is a little more prepared to, we work together and collaborate together in installation, scripting, practice planning. So that has been seamless.
And it was about the students selling out the swamp. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's 3 years in a row. It's great to hear other players and other coaches talk about, the swamp, right? And certainly one of the more iconic games in all of college sports. And that student section will be in prime form again this year.
Really, beyond consistency, what are you looking for from Graham?
Yeah, no, I think he's doing exactly what you would want a veteran quarterback to do. This is like acquiring a free agent that's played multiple years as a starter. He's learning our system. He's embraced our methods, our way of doing things, and I think you get almost a renewed lease on life. It's like having a new lease on life. You come in, you're experienced, you've got a chip on your shoulder, you're there with purpose, and I think he's been really professional in his approach. I've been very impressed. So,
Go ahead,
you're good.
Last question for Coach.
You've been on quite the recruiting role here lately. What has been the genesis of that? And obviously you want to sustain it, but how sustainable is it going forward? Or is this just the start of it?
Well, I like to think it's just the start of it, right? But, what I would say is that University of Florida is a really, really special place, right? And we have completely rebuilt the player experience. We've benefited from administration that has built facilities, they've worked with us to recreate this player experience. And I just think we've got an incredible product to sell. Right? I would put our player experience up against anyone in the country. The degree, the alumni network, the opportunity to compete in the best conference in the country, and you have history, you have tradition. The one battle we have is recent success, right? So we get them on campus, we got a chance. And I think we've hired really well, and ultimately we're selling a really good product right now.